Why, nothing, sold for $18,000.
All right, let's talk about a story that, on the surface, sounds completely bonkers. It's a story about art, about money, and about what it means to own something that isn't actually there. So, let's start with this number, 15,000 euros. That's about 18,000 US dollars. In May of 2021, an artwork sold for this much. You know, a pretty decent price for a piece of art. But this wasn't your typical piece of art.
That's right, the artwork was totally invisible, immaterial. The buyer got literally nothing delivered to their house. So how on earth can nothing be worth so much money? That's the big mystery we're going to solve today.
As you can probably guess, the public reaction was, well, it was disbelief. Social media just blew up with comments like this one, which, let's be honest, is probably what a lot of us were thinking.
And this one. The whole thing was treated like a joke, right? The ultimate example of the crazy, over-the-top art world. But here's the thing. What if it's not a joke? What if this invisible sculpture is actually showing us something really, really important about how value works? Okay, so let's get the facts straight. The artist's name is Salvatore Garau, and the piece is called Io Sono, which is Italian for I am. Now, the buyer didn't get a sculpture. What they got was a certificate of authenticity, and with it, a very specific set of instructions. You have to display this work in a 5 by 5 foot empty space. The artist himself said it's made of, and I quote, air and spirit.
To really get what's going on here, we have to rewind the clock. Our first clue is waiting for us in Paris, back in 1911. The Mona Lisa has just been stolen from the Louvre.
So what happens next is just wild. For 2 whole years, the painting was gone. But people didn't stop going to the Louvre. In fact, more people came than ever before. They would line up for hours just to stare at the blank wall where the Mona Lisa used to hang. Think about that. The absence of the painting somehow made its presence feel even stronger.
So why? What were they all looking at? That empty space became this incredibly powerful symbol. It wasn't just a wall anymore. It was a frame that held this profound sense of loss. It became this object of intense collective fascination. This whole strange obsession with an empty space, it actually points to a really deep psychological truth. It was a psychoanalyst named Jacques Lacan who talked about this. He basically argued that what drives us as humans, our desire, isn't really about getting the thing we want. It's structured around the lack of it. The wanting is almost always more powerful than the having. Lacan had a term for this, an empty signifier. The best way to think about it is like a picture frame without a picture inside. The frame itself doesn't really mean anything, but it creates and organizes a space, and it invites us, it almost forces us to project our own ideas, our own feelings, our own desires into that empty space. And that invisible sculpture? It's a perfect empty signifier. So here's how it works. It's a 3-step process, really. First, the artist creates the frame. That's the certificate, the instructions. This gives the whole thing authority. Second, that empty 5 by 5 foot space is officially declared to be the artwork. And third, and this is the magic part, our minds do the rest of the work. Our imagination just rushes in to fill that certified void with concepts, with ideas, with value. The artwork literally happens inside your head. Now, if that sounds a little too academic, don't worry. You've actually seen this exact same logic play out in a place you would probably never expect. Remember the movie Kung Fu Panda? Po is obsessed with finding the secret ingredient in his dad's incredible noodle soup, but the big reveal from his dad is there is no secret ingredient. Then later, he finally gets the legendary dragon scroll, the thing that's supposed to hold the secret to unlimited power. He opens it up and it's blank. It's just a reflective surface. He can only see himself. See? The secret wasn't in the soup, and the power wasn't in the scroll. The power was never in the object itself. It was in the belief, the story, the structure built around it. That empty scroll forced Poe to realize the power was inside him all along. So what Garau's sculpture, the missing Mona Lisa, and the dragon scroll all show us is that value, at its core, isn't a thing. It's a shared story. It's a collective agreement that we all buy into. Let's just put these 3 side by side for a second. The invisible sculpture, it activates our imagination. The missing Mona Lisa, it makes us feel the power of what's lost even more intensely. And the dragon scroll, it reveals that the power was within us the whole time. You see? In every single case, the void, the nothing, isn't a failure or a scam. It's a catalyst. It's actively doing something. So now we can finally go back and answer those critics.
How can nothing be worth so much money? Because value is never just about the physical stuff. It's about symbolic meaning, it's about the relationships between people, and it's about the shared trust we all place in a system, whether that's the art market or the stock market.
So the person who bought Io Sono wasn't buying air. They were buying participation in this huge conceptual story. They were buying cultural capital, bragging rights. They bought a place in the ongoing conversation about what art can even be. In a way, they bought the very thing that fuels all our desires, an object whose only job is to make us think and want and feel.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. It's easy to laugh at the invisible sculpture, but we all live by this same logic. The value of the money in your pocket isn't in the paper or the metal. It's in a shared story, a collective belief. The power of a brand name is totally invisible. So maybe the sculpture isn't a joke after all. Maybe it's a mirror, forcing us all to ask ourselves, what invisible things do you buy into every single day?